Hello, everyone. I'm so freaking pumped up for this Zoom. You guys have no idea. I messaged Kelsey, I don't know, a couple weeks ago on Instagram, and I was like, please, please, please do a Zoom. And she was like, yes. And I was like, wait, really? Like, are you for real? You really will? I like freaked out. I told my husband, and he was like, cool. I don't really know, but great. That sounds awesome as long as you're excited. So I'm not going to take up a ton of time. Kelsey, if you want to go ahead and just share a little bit about your story, a little bit about yourself, let people get to know you, and then we'll go straight into questions. Let me unmute you.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Courtney, for even asking me. I feel so honored. I know it's a big deal when people get asked to be on a team Zoom because at the end of the day, your team is like your baby. Okay. And you don't just bring anybody to your baby to introduce them to your baby. And so I feel honored to even be asked. So thank you, Courtney, for having me. But you guys, I just am obsessed with this business. I'm obsessed with what it's done and what it can do for people. But to give you a little insight, about 5.5 years ago, I joined because I wanted some extra hair and nail money. Okay. I just wanted to not feel fat anymore because I just had my baby and I was like, what happened to my life before her kid, like when it was easy to just like get in the car in 5 minutes and go where you're supposed to go and not be late. Like what happened to that life, right? And so I remember feeling like everything was out of control in my life. And I hated that feeling. I hated feeling like, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen with our finances because, having a baby is expensive. Okay. And I was honestly just in one of those states in my life where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I doing? I just had this kid and she's awesome and she's great and I'm in love with her and I'm in love with my husband, but it still felt like I wasn't fulfilled. Drop a one if you've ever felt like that. If you're like, I've checked all the boxes. I've done the things that I'm supposed to do. I went to school. Maybe you went to school and you got your degree and all these things. And you're just like, but why do I feel like there's something more? Like there has to be more than just waking up, going to work, picking my kid up from school, and then all of a sudden going to sleep and repeating all over again. And I didn't know what that meant at all. But what I knew was I was looking for something. And I didn't even know what I was looking for, but it was just something. Have you guys ever felt like that? It's like, I'm just looking for that. It's like when you go out to eat and you're like, what do you want to eat? You're like, I don't know, but it's not that, or it's not that, and it's not that. And so sometimes we have to have the process of elimination. And so I remember, talking to my husband about it. And one day we were driving through this really nice area. And I said, who lives in these houses? Like, who the F is driving these Mercedes and these BMWs and these nice cars and living in these nice houses? What job do they have? Because I went to school too. I got my master's too. Like, I did what society told me to check these boxes, and I still feel like I'm struggling to get ahead. It wasn't like I couldn't pay my bills, to be honest with you guys, like, because struggling is relative, right? And my question to you is, how bad does it have to get before your struggle is your struggle? So for me, my struggle was, if I can't get my hair and my nails done, there's an issue because I've worked too hard not be able to do those simple things, right? I've worked too hard to not be able to do that. And so for me, I was like, this ain't it. Me and my husband both have our college degrees. We're both working full time. Why are we still struggling? I am missing something here. And so my husband was like, I just feel like everybody has a side hustle. And I was like, dude, maybe you're right. Like, cause he was like, look at this like alfalfa sprout that's happening in my hair. I don't even really know what's happening, but just bear with me. So, and I was like, maybe you're right. Maybe I just need like a side hustle. But what was I going to do? I wasn't going to go be a waitress. I wasn't going to have more time away from my baby. Like I wasn't going to do things that maybe, and that's not what I wanted. That wasn't it either. And I felt like there has to just be something. And I remember remembering Aaron and almost just like shoving it out of my head. When you just don't want to think about something, you're like, nope, nope, count it out. Nope, I don't want to even think about it. That was me. And so I then the next day I saw this article and it said the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. Okay, I got it. I get the hint. So I reached out to Kyle, who is Aaron Tweed's husband, and I messaged him because I knew Kyle from college, like not super well, but we were enough to we were friends on Facebook. So that's how I saw a lot of Aaron's posts. And I remember saying, how much money does your wife make a month? I was like, that is not a socially appropriate question. I don't know where I got the gumption to ask that, but I did. So I asked him, and he was, at the time, Aaron was a double diamond, and he was like, she makes about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And I literally remember laughing out loud and showing the phone to my husband, being like, can you believe this dude is lying to me about how much money his wife makes a month? Like, this is a joke. She doesn't make that from her phone. And my husband was like, but what if she even made half of that? And I was like, oh, what if she just made half of that? And you know what? That means that what if I could just make $500? What kind of difference would that make for my family? And so I just reached out to her and had a conversation, and she was so normal and she was so nonchalant about things. Like, she was not like pressuring me. She was just kind of like, this is what I do. And I was like, I remember asking the question. And if you haven't ever asked this question, you should ask this question to people that you look up to or people who are where you want to be, is what do you think makes you successful that doesn't allow other people to be successful? I remember asking her that question. Like, I've seen a lot of people start businesses online, but why do you think you're more successful? And she said, because I just share my life. I just share my life, and I just weave the business into it. I just incorporate the business into it. And I remember being like, I can do that. I can do that. And I can just share our life. So I remember like the first year of my business, it was like hashtag Thornton family adventure. Like, dear Jesus, thank God for bringing me past that stage of my business. Okay. But we all start somewhere. And so I remember just being excited about my business and not really knowing what that meant. You guys, I didn't even sign my first customer for 3 weeks. Not for 3 weeks. I remember I was actually so mad that Erin gave me a couple customers. She's given me 2 customers, and they were in like my first 3 weeks, but she gave me those customers. And I remember being like, this girl doesn't even think I can do it. She just feels so bad for me that she's placing customers under me. Like, I remember being like, this is really embarrassing. I got to get my life together. So I started, and then I just was like, okay, I signed one customer, then I can sign another one. It really wasn't that hard. It's just getting started. And so once I just kind of got started and got over that fear, it was like, wow, this is fun. Like, it's fun to see the results. It's fun to see your work paying off, right? And that doesn't mean it always does, but on the moments it does, it's worth it when it does, from the times that when it doesn't. And so I went Ruby. And hopefully you guys are getting things from this story, because I don't mean to just talk for like the whole time, but I want to, there's lessons in every part of my story. Okay. So I remember, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just want to hit Ruby. There was $1,000 Ruby bonus at the time. And I was like, if I get that, I'm rich. Okay. Like, it's just straight, I'm just rich at this point. And so I remember, I was working full time, and my HR lady, when I was going Ruby, she was like, I see you posting all the time at work, and you can't do that. And I was like, but I'm not. Like, I remember challenging her and being like, I don't even post, like, I post that in the bathroom. I already have them planned. Like, I'm not even spending work time doing this. And I remember being like, plus, like, you're not paying me to market. Like, that's not my job. My job is not marketing the bank. And she was just like, okay, but like, she was like shaking her finger at me, but she had no leg to stand on, right? Like, there was nothing saying that they can control what I post about. But if I would have let that get to me and be like, because that would have been a great excuse. It would have been reasonable, right? Hey, I don't want to lose this job, whatever. But like, at the end of the day, like, I had to know what I stood for. I had to know what was important for me. I had to know what that meant for me. So I started, and I went Ruby. Okay. And I remember being like, I just got $1,000 bonus. Ain't nobody telling me nothing. Like, I'm freaking awesome. Okay. And Erin called me that next night, and she's like, hey, do you have your diamond chart out? And I was like, no. And she's like, I'm like, isn't there like a rank between that, like emerald or something? And she's like, just get your diamond chart out. And I was like, okay. I was like, I don't have a printer, but She's like, just draw it on the back of a piece of paper. I remember taking a bill that we had and writing on the back of it and drawing out a diamond chart. At the time, it was 24 people to go diamond. And she's like, okay, fill out your boxes real quick and then take a picture. And she's like, how many boxes do you have left? And I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I had half of a diamond chart filled out. And she was like, okay, you're going to go diamond this month. And I was like, what? She's like, Kelsey, there's a $10,000 bonus. Why the hell wouldn't you go for it? And I was like, yeah, good point. I don't know. She's like, you wouldn't, if you didn't go for it, you're not getting it. But if you did, at least you have a chance. And so I was like, okay, you know what? Screw it. And she's like, you just have to keep telling yourself you're diamond. And every single day, keep telling yourself that. And I was like, okay. So I remember I was always listening to Jade Hooper. Okay. Every single morning, just like my cup of coffee, I would just listen to Jade Hooper every single morning. And I was just like a sponge in the business. And you guys, my volume went, the month I went and reviewed, my volume was around 4,000. I think it was like 4,400. And the next month, my volume was 17,000. I promoted to diamond on the 25th. And I'm telling you that to tell you that I was literally so ignorant that I just thought that that was normal. And I expected it to happen. I didn't question it. I just said, if Aaron thinks that I can do it, why couldn't I do it? And some of us need to have that level of trust now because we've overcomplicated the business, because we make it seem way harder than it is. And if you would just listen to somebody who says that you can do it instead of listening to your own thoughts, you would be so much further along. Right? Because how many times do you tell your kids, just trust me? Hey, jump, I'm going to catch you, jump. And every single time, do you know how pissed they would be if you would be if they didn't jump? You would be so annoyed. So why do we all of a sudden not believe it if our upline or somebody is telling us you can do this? Do it. Just do it. Because we get in our head. I was talking to somebody else about this. We're the only living organism that doesn't grow to their full potential. You don't tell a tree, hey, stop growing, and it stops growing. It still grows. But we're the only ones that can stop ourselves, right? There's a quote that says, if there's no enemy within, then the enemy outside can do us no harm. And so what if you just stopped being your own enemy? What if you got out of your own way and you just said, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. And so yes, I have a game plan at the beginning of the month, but even more importantly, I have belief that's going to last me through the month. I'm not going to be in eSuite looking how far away I am from my next promotion. I'm going to know how much I have, and I'm going to keep pushing until I get there. I'm not going to check eSuite because guess what? Checking eSuite doesn't increase your volume. It doesn't. So anyways, so then I went diamond. A couple months later, my husband went diamond. Then a year later, we went double. A year later, we both went triple. And then there's lessons from each promotion. But long story short, 5.5 years later, here I am, Ambassador Diamond. I have an incredible team. I'm super passionate about leadership. I'm super passionate about growing people and really helping every single person maximize their full potential, because I believe that majority, 99% of people are operating out of 40% of their potential. So go ahead with questions, because I could just be here all night talking.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. I love that you said that, like that you shared your volume, because I feel like so many times people hear like, oh, I went from ruby to diamond. They're probably like, okay, well, you probably needed like 400 volume and like we're already charted. Like it doesn't matter how far away you are. I was talking to someone on my team the other day and I was like, listen, the month that I went from diamond to double, I brought in like 9,000. And we had never brought in more than like 2,000 a month before. So it's not a matter of what's possible. It's a matter of what you believe is possible. It's not a matter of, no one's telling you, hey, there's no way you can go from distributor to diamond. You're just telling yourself that. So, okay, kind of tying in, someone asked, what is your favorite personal development? I feel like you're so hype and positive all the time. Hold on, I think you're muted again. You are. Hold, please. Hold, please. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I always like have a habit of muting myself because normally my kids are in the background. I'm actually in a hotel right now, so it's fine. I'm like, oh, I'll mute myself so the noise doesn't happen. Okay, so my favorite personal development, it actually depends on what that person needs. So there's never going to be just like a blanket self-development book that I'm going to recommend without asking questions. Because Taylor on here, she might need a really good faith-based self-development book. While Melanie on here is really needing just a belief book. Like she just needs to believe in herself. She just needs to know that she can do it. While Courtney, you might need something that's just like, hey, get your life together and start time managing. You know, like you don't, like every single person is going to require something different. So I feel like the biggest thing I think that people struggle with, and the biggest obstacle that we all have, and the basis for a lot of people not working in the business, is comfort zone. Like the need that we are always trying to fill for ourselves is staying in our comfort zone. Like how many times have you gotten frustrated with somebody on your team who's like, yeah, great plan, let's go, let's do it, and then they just sit on their hands? Maybe that's even you. And how many times have you been frustrated with yourself with you're like, why didn't I just do that? Whether it's working out, whether it's getting your stuff done for your business, whatever it is, because you're like, I told myself I was going to do it and I didn't do it. Like it happens all the time. I do it all the time, right? But it's all because of a comfort zone. It's all because there is something more comfortable about not doing it. And it just could be that that's more familiar to you. Maybe you're just used to quitting. Maybe you're just used to not being successful. And that's all you know. You don't even know what it's like to be successful. And it's actually kind of scary, right? Maybe it's the fact that like you don't know what it's going to feel like if you have a team depending on you. And so subconsciously you're a little bit scared of that, right? But it's all based on a comfort zone. And so I think that for me, when I started to really coach people on what's holding them back and what's their comfort zone that they're having a hard time coming out of, instead of being like, you need to do this X, Y, and Z. No, I'm not coaching on what you need to do. Go watch a video. There's millions of videos of how to do the KPI, of how to do this. And so like, you might ask me about that tonight, but I'm not going to spend that much time on it because y'all know what to do. Like y'all know the things that are on the list, they're pretty self-explanatory. And so the really big question is, what's really holding you back from actually doing it? And when you can start coaching people on that and asking those questions, because you're not like a therapist, but what you are is a friend. And what you are is somebody that is going to be honest, that's going to be truthful and say, hey, I think that your enrollments aren't where you want them to be. Why do you think that is? But so many times, I remember this feeling, there would be people on my team and I'm like, oh, I don't want them to like notice how bad they are right now, because if they notice, they might quit. Y'all don't think they notice? Y'all don't think they realize how horrible their enrollments are and how embarrassed? That's why they're not calling you. It's because they're embarrassed. It's because they don't know how to shift that. And so they don't even know what questions to start asking. Drop a 1 if you felt this before. If you felt like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. I don't know why I suck so bad. And I don't even know what questions to ask. Right? I've felt that before. It's like, dang, I'm embarrassed because I haven't been doing the crap that I need to do. And I honestly don't even know where to start anymore. And so once you as a leader, you as somebody who has anybody on their team, and you as a person who's leading themselves, has to ask yourself those questions. Let's be honest. Honesty will always get you further than avoidance.
Oh my gosh.
It's uncomfortable.
So good. So good. So many times, honesty with yourself is literally the hardest thing in the world, because you never want to admit that you're like slacking for yourself or like you're letting yourself down. But that's what you need to let yourself feel to move forward. So this is kind of tying in. Someone said, how do you bounce back after losing so much momentum and basically having to redo your entire chart?
So I actually love this question. And I think that what happens is that there's growing pains in the business. Okay. And I know when I went diamond, I'm trying to think, I think there's, if you don't include my husband, who doesn't work the business, but he has a spot, there's one person from my diamond chart that's still left. And she's actually was a 400 box and now she's my presidential. Okay. But there's one person from my diamond chart. And so what I want to tell you is that you're not the first person that's lost momentum. You're not the first person that's had to rebuild from scratch. But what I want to tell you is you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. And that is an amazing place to start from. Because if you've done it before, if you've created momentum in your business before, you can do it again and you can do it more efficiently. And now you have wisdom that you've gained from experience. And hopefully you've prayed about what happened and you've gotten some insight on what you could have done better. Because even if you just had the worst team in the world, it's never 100% their fault. You always have some form of responsibility in what's happened. Because my rule is this: when I started taking complete accountability, there's two things that you say. All the things that happen to you, or that happen on your team, you've either allowed them to happen or you've created it. I'll give you an example. I have some blue in my personality. So I'm dominant red, secondary blue. Blues are historically late, like they're just typically late because they're so caught up in the moment of whatever they're doing that like they're just like, oh, okay, crap, what time is it? I gotta go, right? Now, because of that, I'm gonna tell you, if you hop on my team Zooms on Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, there'll be about like 15 people on. At 10:03, do you wanna know how many people are on? Like 100. Because I start the Zooms late. So I've actually created and allowed that to happen. But if I started my Zooms at 10 p.m. on the dot every single time, what time do you think people would be on there? 10? They'd be on there at 10. They'd probably be on there a little early, actually. And so what you have to do is recognize, you know what? It's not all my fault that that person's just maybe a miserable human. It could be my fault that maybe I didn't coach them. I didn't ask them enough questions. What could I have done better? And yeah, there's going to be and there is a difference, you guys. Let me make sure I say this, between self-pity and learning. Okay. Because I know so many people that are like, oh God, well, I could have just done all this better. And they're wallowing in this self-pity, but never making any changes. So what the difference is what are you going to do with the stuff that you found out? Because you can always change. Everything that I know now in this business, I did not know before this business. Right? We're all starting here. It's just, are you willing to learn? And so to the person that is saying, I've lost momentum, I have to completely rebuild, what I want to say to you is that you can do it again. Is that this time you're going to do it better. This time you know what you're looking for, or do you? Did you learn from what happened last time, or are you playing the victim? Right? Because you can't lead and moan at the same time. You just can't. And so as you move through like these phases in your business, it's a learning lesson, but also know that every single leader has been through this before. And it's actually what makes you stronger for the next climb. Claire Flores said something to me one time. And, you know, so often it's like we're climbing up the mountain to diamond and we hit the mountain to diamond and then we see the double, right? We see the next mountain and we just think, oh, it's just a bridge and we're going to cross it and we're going to go up. And then we're going to see triple and then it's a bridge and we're going to cross it and go up, right? And we're just going to go like this and like this and like this. And what God says is from mountain to mountain, I didn't make bridges. I built valleys. I built valleys to prepare you for the next mountain. How are you going to get the endurance to climb that next mountain if you didn't have to go back down and go back up? And I think so often we just expect it to be easy. Why do we expect it to be easy? If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And so this is what creates the question of how bad do you really want it? It's going to require work. It's going to require you to grow and step outside of your comfort zone, but how bad do you really want it? And I think so many times in my business, I've had to ask myself that question. Do I want to do my KPIs every day? Nope. But do I do them? Yes. Yes. And so as you are moving through that, the other thing I want to say is it's not about if you're going to fall off the horse, because that's how it feels. It's like, I've fallen off the horse and what do I do? It's about how many times can you get back on? That's what separates the really good people from the average people. That's what separates the people who go double and go triple and go pres and go ambassador. It's not that they didn't have a valley in between it. They just kept going. And so this is the time where it's going to separate the men from the boys. Right? And so you have to say to yourself, how tough can this make me? What can God teach me in this? And can I just keep putting one foot in front of the other?
Oh my gosh. So good. So good. So I want to know, because I've been talking to a couple of people on my team and they are struggling with the idea that they feel like if someone on their team is going to promote, it's because they're being built by that person. So they're like, it's a diamond, we'll say, that's thinking there's no Ruby that's going to promote on my team unless I built them. So what would you say to that person that's really having trouble like releasing that control and trusting that people can promote on their own?
People will rise and fall to the level of the expectation you have. That's it. I mean, you know if somebody believes in you and you know if somebody doesn't. And when I started, because here's the thing, it's understandable why you feel that way. Because guess what? You remember the Usher song? And I always say this because it's like, it's so true. The You Remind Me song, you remind me of a girl that I'm not a good singer, so I'm not going to sing for you guys. But that song, you remind me of a girl that I once knew. Every single time, it's like we have PTSD when it comes to signing distributors. And just because one person quit, we put that on somebody else. It's like a relationship. If you've been cheated on before, you automatically have this thought in the back of your head or the front of your head. I don't know. It depends on how bad it was, that this next person is going to cheat on you. But that's not fair. That's not fair. And so it's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if you look for it, you're going to find it. But wouldn't your business be so much more fun if every single person that came into it, you expected them to be your next diamond? How much does that cost you? It doesn't cost you anything. And I think that if we just think about it that way, instead of saying, oh, well, I just don't want to get my hopes up and I just don't want to be disappointed. Why? Why? I would much rather be disappointed than never to have believed in anybody at all. And I think that like once you start looking for the good, so this is actually how I noticed myself doing this, because as the red part of my personality, I can kind of be hypercritical because I'm super hypercritical of myself. And therefore that translates into how I can view other people. Because here's the thing, guys, if you're believing that about other people, then you're going to believe that about yourself at some point too. So the grace that you extend yourself is going to be a reflection of the grace that you can extend other people. If you can't extend yourself grace, then you can't extend other people grace. And I'm going to tell you, if it's the same people who've had diamond fall apart, there's a reason God is humbling you. Because you ain't all that in a bag of potato chips, because your life can crumble at any point too. There's crap that can happen to you. There's life-changing things. I just had this happen to one of the girls on my team. She's like super dominant red personality. And she's just like always gets her stuff done and always this. And like this last month, she signed no distributors. It's the first time in 4 years in her business that she didn't sign any distributors. She's always filled herself to success. And she's always been so hard on her team. Like, why can't they just get it done? Like, I just don't understand. Like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, God is humbling you. It's actually hilarious to watch. She's like, I'm glad you're enjoying this. And I was like, because her team is like thriving. And I'm like, you were the one that was telling me you thought you would do this whole promotion on your own. God is humbling you. And so you have to learn how to expect the best in people, because that's going to bring out the best in them. If you expect the worst, that's not going to bring out any good. So what's shifted for me, number one, I started praying this prayer, and I still pray this prayer. Lord, help me see people the way that you see them. We're supposed to be Jesus's hands and feet. And if we can't view people in proper ways, we can never serve them in proper ways. And I think that if you can start praying, Jesus, help me see people the way you see them. And how does Jesus see people? He sees them at their best, not their worst. He sees them for their strengths, not their weaknesses. And so what I had to do was, before I got on coaching calls, before I talked to people, before I looked at my chart, I wrote out 3 things that I loved about that person. What are 3 things I really appreciated about that person? And you know what it started forcing me to do? Getting in the habit of looking for those things. It was so hard the first time I did it because all I was talking about and all I was thinking about was what they wanted to do, what they weren't doing, how lazy they were, how many excuses they made. It's going to be the same thing when I get on this coaching call. It's going to be me on repeat. I should just have a recording of myself and press play, right? Like I've felt all of those things before. And I look back and I see, how selfish was I? That was not me serving them. God, I had prayed for people to come into my business. I prayed for them. And now I was cursing exactly what I had prayed for. And so I had to check myself and say, what do I really love about that person? And then I started to see all their gifts. Wow, this person is such an encourager. They're going to be amazing leaders. And guess what I started to do? Speak that into them. Because how many of you guys wish you were better at giving words of affirmation? How many of you guys wish you were better at X, Y, or Z? And you know people on your team are like that. And this is another thing that you can do. So let's say I'm talking to Courtney, and Courtney has these amazing people on her team. And typically reds aren't very good at this unless they're red, yellow. But if you're red, it's not normally a strength. And so what I had to do was learn this, because obviously we're not physically touching every single person every day. We can't do acts of service every single day to love on people, right? So words is such a big part of this business. And I remember learning, I was saying to myself, like, I have to learn how to love people and how to love people well, right? Because if I can't look at somebody on my team and say, how did I love on them today? And how do I love them well? Not how does Kelsey want to love Courtney, but how can I love Courtney the way Courtney wants to be loved? Because it really has nothing to do with me. If I can love her well, I'm loving her the way that she wants to be loved on, right? And so I started to ask my girls, I would be like, okay, let's talk about your chart. Let's talk about this. And I would say, okay, tell me what you love about this person. She would say, oh my gosh, Courtney's like the hardest worker. She's so amazing. Like she's never afraid of a challenge. She's always so bold. She loves, she's so passionate about getting better. She's always hungry to learn. My next question, when's the last time you told her that? And I want you to do this with your chart tonight. I want you to go through the people on your team and write down the things that you really appreciate. Are they really loving in your team chats? Are they amazing with the way that they always are commenting or liking the posts in the team page? Are they always on every Zoom? Do you know how much more enjoyable your business is when you lead like that? When you look for people's gifts instead of looking for their weaknesses? And you know why we do this? It's understandable. It's because of fear. It's because if they're not successful, we don't want to be the ones to blame. Right? Whether or not you know that's the reason why you do it, I'm just telling you that's the reason why you do it. Because we don't want to be held accountable for somebody else's business. But I'm here to release you from that, because you're not responsible for anybody else's business. You're responsible to support them, to believe in them. That's actually a bigger responsibility than their success. You need to believe in them. And then the rest is up to them. You need to be there for them. You need to show up for your business every day. You need to, answer their questions, all of those things, but you can't do the work for them. It's just like, I made this TikTok about this because it's so true. It's like, dang, I wish I could just drop my body off at the gym and have somebody else work out for me. Like, seriously, it's like, I would like, don't you wish that could happen? And that's sometimes how people feel in this business. I wish that, I could just have a Zoom with Kelsey and then she can just do all my work for me. Right? We can't do that though. And so we have to recognize that, like, at the end of the day, it's not our responsibility to make them successful, but it is our responsibility to believe in them. And so you have to learn how to get creative about finding ways in which you can believe in people. Now, does that mean that you're unrealistic about where they should fall in your chart or what they can? No. But what that means is that you are always knowing every single time they tell you, hey, this is different, I believe you. I believe you. Because you're not, if you don't, they're going to feel it. And so you continue to love on them. And I had a girl, she's been in my business, gosh, 4 years now. And she cried the other day on the phone because I just like randomly called her because I was like asking her a question or whatever. And like, she's kind of out of the business right now, but she's been in and out. She's super loyal. It's just, there's life. It's life. Life happens. And she voice messaged me after and she's like, you have no idea how much that call meant to me because I know that you still believe in me and I am going to get it together. Wouldn't you rather be that leader than the one who said, I just don't believe anybody can get it done besides me. I'm just never going to find anybody. And it just takes retraining your brain. It just takes understanding that are people going to disappoint you sometimes? Yes. But at the end of the day, we disappoint Jesus sometimes. We're not perfect either. And so we have to humble ourselves to realize we're not better than anybody. But Jesus gave us a vision. And if we can remember our vision, then guess what? We're going to keep going and we're going to keep fighting. And all the time when people on my team are frustrated about this is what I say to them is your vision that Jesus gave you is for you. It's not for anybody else. Okay. And so the work ethic that he gave you, when you say, I feel like I work harder than anybody else on my team, I feel like X, Y, and Z, guess what? That's a gift. Why are you cursing it? Why are you mad that you work so hard? Why are you frustrated? That you should just reassure you that that's one of your gifts. And then realize there's going to be other people out there that have those gifts and you're going to find them. And the time is going to pass anyways. So just keep going. If you get tired, rest, don't quit. Okay, I'm done. Just cut me off.
Gosh. No, I'm just like, I just want to like sit here and just be like, just speak for like 6 more hours. It's fine. Okay, I have 2 more questions. So the other question that someone said is, how are you casting vision for your new distributors without completely overwhelming them and making them just be like, I'm done?
Questions. You have to ask questions. That was like one of the biggest mistakes that I made is because John Maxwell says there's 2 types of leaders. There's a direction leader and a question asking leader. A direction leader is, hey, this is where we're going. This is where we're taking you. Let's go. You don't even ask them. They're just like pulling them along. And they're like, I don't know if this is what God has for me. You're like, it's fine. This is exactly what he has for you. Let's just go. And that was me. That was me in the first year, 2 years of my business where I was just like, here's where we're going. And guess what? It worked. It worked for a little bit, but it's a selfish way of doing it. And it's not super sustainable. Okay. Because what's happening is you're doing that based on your assumption that what's good for you is what's good for them. And that's not the case. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. And so what I realized is that I had to be a question asking leader. What's good for you? Do I know? Do I even know what you want? I had to redo this with all my leaders recently because I realized I hadn't been asking them those questions because I assumed that I knew what they wanted because I knew them, but I wasn't asking. And you know how powerful it is for people to speak out what they want? They might know it up here, but having them speak it out, totally different thing. And so becoming a question asking leader helps me create that vision for them because I can't just go in there and say, and paint my vision for them. I mean, that's going to maybe make them think a little bit bigger for a little bit. But if that's not what they envision right now for their life, it is going to overwhelm them. If you keep saying, this is what you can have, and this is what you can do, whatever. But like, if they don't believe it, it's kind of pointless. So if you just ask them simple questions, hey, if this business were to give you a $500 check for the next 3 months in a row, how would that change your life? What could that do for you? What about in the next 6 months getting a couple $2,000 checks? Tell me what that could do for you. What kind of bills could that pay? How would that change your holidays? How would it change Christmas? How would it change like the way and the load of stress that your husband has from a financial standpoint? You know, asking these questions, and some of you guys still probably even need to ask yourself these questions. Drop a 2 if you feel that way. Feel like you need to get really real with what this business could do for you and remind yourself this. And you know what? That's a great way for you to start a conversation with a new distributor. Is, when I first got into the business, I asked myself these questions. This is how I answered them right now. What about you? Right? Here's the thing. When you're talking to new distributors, it's so easy for us to feel like we have to have everything together. But Craig Rochelle, who's like one of my favorite leadership people to listen to, he always says people would always rather follow somebody who's real than always right. And people will admire you for your strengths, but they'll connect to you through your weaknesses. And so if you get on there and you say, this is where I've been before, this is my story, this is kind of the struggle that I went through, and then I found this business, and this is what it's done for me, and this is really where I hope it's going to take me. Now, if I ask you these same questions, what does your answer look like? Like if you got this $500 check in the mail, for 3 months, what would that do for you and your family? But some of us are so afraid to ask those questions, right? And you have to ask yourself, why am I afraid? Why am I afraid to ask those questions? Because that vision, that's what's going to create their vision. Because you know what? I've had people be on Zooms and tell me, you know what? They start telling me things they didn't even know they wanted. Right? I had somebody tell me this whole story about how they got sexually abused and all this stuff. Okay, first time I've ever talked to this girl. It's just like we were just in this conversation, it was flowing, and she was telling me this, and she's like, you know what? Like, I really would love to make a nonprofit for women who have been sexually abused. She created this whole vision because I just allowed her to talk. Because I just asked her those questions that nobody had ever asked her before. And so it's amazing what can happen when you ask people the questions that allow them the space to really think, to really see what this could do. Because a lot of people are coming in saying, I hope I can work. I hope this 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 can work. Geez, I just hope this works. I just hope this works. They don't even know why they want it to work. They just know that they're struggling. But they don't have the numbers of what this $500 could do. Right? And if you are struggling to be motivated and you haven't been in this business for over a year, I want you to go back and see, what has that money done for you? What has that money done for you? What has it allowed you to do? And write out all the blessings that it's given you and the confidence. And then realize, if I double that this next year, how can that change my life? And really think about it. Don't make this some 2-minute exercise you're just doing to get through it. Do it and sit in it for 10, 15 minutes and allow yourself to create that vision for yourself. And a lot of times people struggle to have that vision and to cast that vision because they don't know what their own is. They knew when they first got started, and then they accomplished it, and then they don't know anymore. And then you're stuck. And so the stuck has nothing to do with the business. It has everything to do with your vision. And here's why. Here's what happens when people quit the business. Number one, they never even had a vision to begin with. But number two, if they've had a vision and then they quit, it's because I love this story. There's a story of 3 people who were laying bricks, right? 2 people just bricking, right? And one guy was asked, what are you doing? And he said, I'm laying bricks. The second guy was asked, what are you doing? And he said, I'm building a wall. And the third guy was asked and said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm constructing a grand cathedral. When you are laying your bricks, AKA doing your KPIs every day, AKA doing your self-development, AKA growing yourself every single day, what's your vision for what you're building? Because what I really want you to know is even if you might not be constructing a grand cathedral, every single brick you're laying, good and bad, is actually the house that you live in. It's actually creating your future. So the laziness brick, that's also on your house. Be careful, right? The pride brick, that's also on your house. Be careful. And so you have to realize that like this all goes back to you and your vision. And so when you help other people by asking those questions, it has nothing to do with you casting their vision. It's everything with being able to help them cast the vision for themselves.
Oh my gosh. So good. There were so many things that I'm like, yes, just all of it. Yes. Okay. The last question that I want to finish on is because so many people, I feel like right now we're starting to see the vision of what can truly come from this time of the year. Okay. We all know come January, things are about to get lit. Like it's about to go nuts come January. Okay. We're all aware of it. So, what would you say to somebody on your team who wants to go from maybe distributor to diamond by the end of the year and maybe their enrollments haven't been where they need to be? Like, they need to step it up. What would you say to that person who really, really wants it, but hasn't necessarily been working for it? Like, how do you help them make that shift?
So I think there's two layers to it. Wanting it and believing you can do it are two different things. Because if I asked on here, how many people want diamond? Every single person would say they want it, right? Like every single person would be like, yeah, I'd take that if it happened, right? But that doesn't mean you actually believe it can happen. So I don't remember who said this, maybe Les Miles, but he said things happen twice. They happen first in your brain and then in reality. Okay, so you have to start visualizing what it's going to feel like when you open up your e-suite and it shifts to diamond. What it's going to feel like when you have a girl on your team promote to emerald and you have another girl on your team promote to ruby, right? You have to start visualizing what that work's going to look like, what that time management's going to look like. And you have to start acting like a diamond today. You don't like promote to diamond and then act like a diamond. You promote to diamond because you've been acting like a diamond, right? It's not like you just get promoted to manager and then you start acting like a manager. That's how corporate works. That's not how this business works. This business works is you start acting like it and then e-suite shows, right? So there's girls on my team and I've told them, I'm like, you're already an ambassador. It's just a matter of e-suite showing it, right? And here's the other thing. This is something I learned at our leadership retreat. It was really cool. So we had like coaches picks at our leader retreat. And then we had obviously like some diamonds and above, whatever. So there were some rubies on our leadership retreat this year. And it was the first time we've done that. And it was funny because we never really talked about rank the whole time we were there, except the last day we broke up into groups and we did this cool exercise where it's called start, stop, continue. So name one thing you want to start in your business, one thing you want to stop in your business, and one thing you want to continue doing in your business. But I broke them up. Like I wanted all the rubies to be together, all the triples to be together, all the doubles, all the diamonds, right? Okay, so we did that. And people were freaking out. Like some of the triples were like, I thought that girl was like a double diamond and she's a ruby. And it was like, if people saw you in those environments, what would they think you are? Would they see you as more or less than what your rank shows? Because so often we're so defined by what our quote unquote rank is in e-suite, our lifetime rank, when at the end of the day, it's just volume. It's just volume. So like for me, for instance, like if I don't maintain ambassador, does that mean I'm like, oh my God, like I'm just like not ambassador material anymore? Like, oh God, like my whole identity. No. In my mind, I'm already an ambassador. So my identity is I'm always going to act like an ambassador because e-suite is just volume. My attitude is ambassador. So what's your attitude? Is it a meek distributor who's like, poor me, nobody ever works when I sign them, whatever? That's a distributor. Is it somebody who's saying, you know what, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm so hungry for knowledge. I'm so ready to learn and I'm going to soak up everything. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to be here until that happens, until what I came here for is happening. And so what would somebody say about how you work, about how you treat your business, about how you talk about your business, right? And I think that sometimes we forget that part of it. And so when you're going, if you want to go from distributor to diamond, it starts up here. It starts up here. And so you have to say, what does a diamond do every day? Go ask a diamond. What do you do every day? Right? And then start making your identity as I'm a diamond. I say this all the time to people. I'm like, people are like, I have a goal of reading like 15 books this year. Okay, but are you a reader? Because if I'm a reader, by default, I'm reading 15 books because that's who I am, right? If I am a fitness person, okay, if I know that I'm like, okay, this is recently what's changed for me, because I used to be on all these like, I gain weight and I lose weight and I gain weight and I lose weight and I gain weight and I lose weight, until I just started shifting my identity. And I started saying, I'm just a fit person. Like, I've always been fit. And so I'm always going to be fit. So does that mean if I go out and I have a couple drinks and I don't work out for 2 days, oh crap, my whole month is screwed up? That's what it used to happen. But now, because I know that I'm a fit person, what happens on Monday? I get back on my thing. Right? Because I know that that's who I am. And so we're always consistent with what we think that we are. So what do you think you are? Are you somebody that's saying to yourself, I want to go diamond, but like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, normally I quit things and I'm this and I'm that. I'm going to tell you, if you might hit it, you really might, but you're not going to sustain it. I'm going to read you something real quick and then I'll stop talking. Hold on. Okay. I read this in like a devotional and then I started like typing and adding to it. Okay. So, have you ever gotten on the right track, made progress, and then for one reason or another slipped and gone back to your old ways? Drop a 1. Maybe this is even your track record. You know the pattern, right? You make a positive change and then all of a sudden it lasts for a short season, but you don't even get too excited anymore because you know that the change won't last, right? And now you have this little voice inside your head that tells you that's just who you are and that's just how it always will be. And eventually you start to question, why do I even try? Drop a 2. You've done that. Why do I even try? Like, what's the point if I know that it's not going to last, right? Well, I'm just going to lose like all that I've gone for. I don't know. This is the way it's always been. So of course, this is going to happen again. And maybe you're doing really good right now, but you feel like in the back of your head, right? You know the change won't last. And you just keep going back to the old you because you just can't keep up with this level of effort long term. And so then you start to fear and then you start to slip again. And then you fear that this newfound strength that you have will go away. And I want to speak truth into your life today, because if that's you, you don't have to go back to who you used to be. Because maybe the old you isn't the real you. Maybe the girl who struggled to get out of bed, the girl who wasted her days, the girl who could never get herself to actually do the things that she knows she needed to do, maybe that was never you. Maybe that was like the knockoff version of you, the cheap imitation, lesser than version of you. Maybe that girl was the fake one, the imposter. And now that you've exposed her, she has no place in your life. Because it doesn't the enemy love to play the screw up and beat up game? He points out all of the things that you've screwed up and he paints a picture of your past. And he's like just saying like, oh, there's so much shame here. You should be, you get so caught up in all the times you've screwed up and all the beatings that you've given yourself that you actually even lack the energy to believe that anything could be different for you. So here you are settling. You just settle with your truth that you're always going to struggle with the same things. And you're just going to stick to your old ways, being your forever ways. And so the enemy tries to convince you that something's wrong with you and that you're broken beyond repair, and that you see other people change and others who have harnessed the power to do these amazing things. And you don't think that you have that same power, and that you are somehow lacking what other people have. But here's the truth, is that weak, overwhelmed, miserable, stuck you is the imitation version of you. She's an imposter. She isn't the real you. And because she's not the real you, you don't have to keep going back to her. And if you're making progress, it's because the real you is finally coming through. The real you is showing up. The real you is making decisions every day and running the show. And how about you ask her to stay? What if you did that? What if you just asked her to stay and you just said, you know what? I'm going to focus on asking this person to stay instead of fearing the old imposter, the weak version of coming back, right? And I think so often we get so focused on what the enemy's trying to do that we forget about how big our God is. Because if we start to say, you know what, and it's not even us telling our enemy about the mountain, or how, you know, the quote that says like, instead of telling God about your mountain, tell the mountain about your God, right? It's not even that. But what if we just said, God, I'm seeking you. You don't even have time to focus on what the enemy's doing because you're so busy seeking him. And so I think that so often we get so caught up and our focus starts to go of the fear, and our focus starts to go all these other places. And then you realize that that's not where my focus should be, right? I'm not settling for anything less than the real version of me. Because if you believe God's word to be true, he made no mistakes when he created you. None. He made you a complete person, lacking nothing. And so this version of you who's going to make progress for these next 3, 4, 5, 6 months is the real version of you that's been trying to break through the eggshell, that's been trying to break through the fake you. And I think that if we can get through, if we can really believe that, and we can really start living life as like our true self, then it will change. Because I know you used to be lazy. I did too. I know you've had some really crappy habits, and guess what? I did too. I know you've screwed things up a time or two. Guess what? Right here with you. I know you've beat yourself up for all the times you slipped back and gone into your old ways. I know you have some bruises from doing the same thing. But once I understood that the old me isn't the real me, I no longer had to fear going back there. Because when you're continually reminded of your past failure, you're naturally drawn to failing again, right? It's like driving in by a wreck on the side of the road and you're like, oh, and then you crash, right? Or focusing on the images in the rear view mirror. Steve Harvey always says that there's a reason that the rear view mirror is this big and the windshield is this big, right? And so stop looking, stop obsessing, trust that God is freeing you from this lesser than version of who you were pretending to be, right? Because you're worth it. Your future is worth it. Your future is brighter than your past. And so you're not the lesser than version that the enemy has been trying to convince you you are. You're not the person that's broken beyond repair, right? You are chosen. You are hand selected by Jesus to be here right now so that you can be successful. So that this business, it's time for you to rise up. You never have to go back to that old version of you. You can do this. That is, I mean, I didn't really even read from the thing, but that's what essentially the thing that I was going to read from says.
Oh my gosh. So good. Like goosebumps galore. I had them like 7,000 times. That was incredible. Put a 0 in the chat. I never know what number we're on, so I just pick random ones. Put a 0 in the chat if you're like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, I 100% feel like God just spoke through you to everyone on the Zoom that just needed that they just needed to know that crappy person, that lazy person, the person that gives up on themselves isn't that's not the real you. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So good. Okay, so before we close out in prayer, is there any last minute thing that you're like, I just really feel like I need to share this?
I just want to tell you guys that like greater is coming. And if you can consistently believe that in your life, like whatever storm you're going through right now, like whatever crazy time it is in your life, that like you're going through this to be strengthened. Like God doesn't waste anything. He just doesn't waste anything. And so I know that somebody needs to hear that right now because I know your life is crazy. I know it feels like it's never ending. It feels like it's back to back things that just keep happening. Things just keep happening. It's like we make one step forward and two steps back, right? And so what I want you to know is that it's not too late, right? Nothing is broken to where it can't be fixed. And don't ever take for granted this day. Don't ever take for granted every single day you wake up. Don't take it for granted. And also don't take for granted this opportunity. Because I was talking to my team about this. I'm like, there was this person who like really wanted to do the business in South Africa, like always get random people from random countries. And it's like she was like, you're so lucky that you have this opportunity. And it like just reminded me like that day I just needed the reminder because I was just frustrated with my business that day. And I was just like, oh my God, why is this like no results are happening? I'm frustrated. Right. And she said, you're so lucky that you even have this opportunity. She's like, I can't wait till it comes here. And I was like, dang, if we could just all have that perspective, if we could just all remind ourselves that this is literally an opportunity. It's an opportunity to change your life. But somewhere along the way, we get a little bit entitled. Somewhere along the way, we feel like somebody owes us something. Somewhere along the way, we think that going back to where we came from is the answer. When it's not, it's just the easy way out. And so realize what you have your hands on. Okay, you just want me to close out in prayer?
That would be great. Oh my gosh, this was incredible. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Well,
close us
thank you
out in
for
prayer.
having me.
Of course, and everyone that's on that, I'm sure you guys are blowing up your chat saying this was amazing. It'll be up on YouTube tonight. So yeah, if you could close us out in prayer, that would be perfect.
Awesome. Dear Jesus, we just come to you tonight and so grateful. We're so grateful for just you being a promise keeper. We're grateful for who you are, for just making a way when it just doesn't feel like there is a way. Lord, we ask you to increase our faithfulness. We ask you to cast out just anything that you feel like is holding us back, that any beliefs that we have that aren't true to your word. And we just thank you. We thank you for Courtney, Lord. I thank you for her leadership. I thank you for her boldness. I thank you for just giving her the passion that she has for this business and for just becoming who you created her to be, Lord. We all want to please you, and we're so grateful that you give us so much grace. I'm so glad that you don't expect us to be perfect because none of us are. But Lord, I ask you to increase every single person under the sound of my voice. I ask you to give them increase, whether that means increase in their character, increase in their finances, increase in their business. Lord, I just ask that you bless them. I ask that there's just a extra layer of favor on their life, that you would allow them to see your goodness, and that their eyes would be open to your goodness, that maybe there's goodness around them right now that they're just not opening their eyes to. So Lord, I ask that we just get a better vision for the life that you've created for us, and that we don't have to settle, that the real you that you made us, the real person that you created us to be can come out, and we can shine our light so bright in a world that right now just feels full of darkness. Lord, we thank you so much for who you are. We thank you so much for what you've done. And we just ask that you help us become more like you. You help us see people the way that you see them, and that you never give us blessings beyond what our character can sustain. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great night. And